Well, hello and welcome. It's time for Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi, 13M3, Through the Flames, the original queue. I'll do another one with the newer stuff. Well, basically I say newer stuff, but basically the unused music, which was from Empire Strikes Back, which happens at the beginning of this. But that's for another time. I want to sort of just go straight into it today. So I'm going to be on a different screen, which is why my head's going to be pointed that way. But what have we got here? Well, I'm just going to move the mic a little bit closer to me so I can sort of speak into it a little bit more. We've got a really interesting... This is sort of the culmination of the whole film, really, you know, as the Death Star 2 is exploded by the rebels, Wedge and Lando. We have this basically a sort of system of little cells, modular cells, where things do the same thing. So we've got bum-ba-dum, bum-bum, chord, dum-ba-dum, bum-bum, sequence, bum-ba-dum, bum-ba-dum, sequence, bum-ba-dum. And then it goes on to something else. All the orchestration is identical. All of the material is sort of consistent. So even with seventh chords, for example, here, where we actually have a B at half dim 7 chord, so B half dim chord, you'll notice that there's quite a lot of separation of harmony. So, for example, there's no third in any of the brass, whereas there is here, and then there's no seventh in any of the strings either. So it's a sort of interesting separation of harmony, and it sounds very clean and clear, especially when there's a lot going on, and we've got basically sort of full brass later on as well. So I think that's probably why, and also it's just a Hollywood thing to do. So we've got all the strings doing the scampering stuff pretty much all the way through. Then they have held chords, still tremolo though. Then there's a little bit of theme, and then digga 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 digga, you know, that sort of Yoda-y type sort of stuff. More tremolo, and trills, and that's kind of it. So that's the strings roll. All of the main material is held in the brass and the wind. So we have all of this sort of triadic stuff. It's all heroic. Like that. So that's basically how the chord progression goes. I put all the chords in: D, B flat, A flat, B half dim, C, D flat, B, D half dim, G, E flat, B flat, D flat minor with a flat 6, because of that. As well, then E flat major going to C half dim, so it's sort of like basically the bass note just changes, I guess. And then we have this amazing imitative fanfare bit, which is all C half dim based. Notice there's no third here, so I think that's kind of not quite right. It really is more of that. It's a sort of C half dim, but with that third suspended as a fourth, like that. We still have it though, because it sort of exists somewhere here, but it's really fleeting, and then it doesn't really appear anywhere else. So I think that's why I put it as a sort of sus4. And then we have a sort of little augmented chord just before it goes here, but it's basically just a neighbouring note, isn't it? But I suppose the bass note changes as well, so it sort of becomes a new chord, but essentially it's just a neighbouring chord, auxiliary chord, you could call it. And we have all of this imitation. So here... just went off my keyboard. And of course this happens really, really quickly as well. So this cell here is repeated here in 24 in the trumpets. Sort of very, very slight change, basically, a sort of slight contraction of that material. And then we have a canon at the octave. And then it changes. So that C half dim feels like it's a supertonic of B flat. That sort of idea. Then we're into that F. And there's a shift. And then another shift into here as well. But you'll see this triplet cell or tuplet cell is interesting because it sort of morphs into this sort of imperial signifier. Like that, which is why I've sort of highlighted them as well. So all of the triadic brass at this point, the horns come in as well. So that's horns, and there are 6 of them. I should have done. That's just a thing from the original score. And then we have a shift to sort of B major and minor because we have a theme like that, but also dum, digga-dum, bom. So that's the sort of our B minor bit, but then we have a B majory bit. Like that as well. So sort of the heroic descending tetrachords are now pentachords, 5-note cells instead of 4-note cells. I've realised, of course, my mic's sort of obscuring my face as well, so sorry about that. But I will do it like that. And then we've got sort of lots of normal separation of harmony here when it goes sort of an E7 bass, but with a D in the bass as well. In fact, we have 2 third inversion chords. It's a very sort of American thing. Like that, very jazz really as well. So it's basically just a big sort of, dominant to tonic, but with the 7ths in the bass as well, which is interesting. And we've got this sort of hints of Yoda. That sort of thing, moving the X-Wing from the swamp in the last film. And then we've got this triplet again. A minor. With a little bit of a flat 6. A sort of dramatic chord progression. Like that, going up by step, and then half a step. Like that. Then basically moving to that sort of D half dim at that point, again, sort of really dramatic. Then we have our imitative fanfare again, which is all sort of basically around that sort of D half dim. And it just builds and builds and builds and builds. Basically goes up and up and up and up and up. I don't know why that's there. That should be gone. And then builds and builds and builds and builds. Onto our minus sort of 5 here. Like that. In a sense, it's almost like a sort of an enharmonic modulation, sort of. It's not really, because it's just a chord rather than the key, but it's sort of D half dim, but that D flat is sort of present as well, so that it becomes a C sharp, which I find interesting. Is it's that sort of semitonal sort of thing, so it's not quite enharmonic, but because it's D like that, but again, of course, the D's still there in that. So, G Lydian as the Death Star is destroyed. Like that. Interesting sort of a little bit of orchestration here with the pizzicato and the trombones. Like that. And then they do this sort of little trill on arco. And that's just bassoons, contra, and double bass as well. But we've also got the tuba. So this is horns, which are very high, like that. So they're just slightly different. Just to make that sort of really, look at that amazing sort of separation of voice at that point. There's very little else going on. Everything else is sort of very, you know, there's a little bit of wind there, but actually that's the next nearest note there. There's nothing else in the way of that, which is really interesting. So you get this real clarity in the voicing, which is really interesting. And then the trumpets join. Damn it. Sorry. And then it's a tertial shift into B Lydian as well. Bit of xylophone as well. And then as it winds down, we got that sort of add a major seventh. And that's it. Really interesting sort of, you know, the way everything is sort of done with all of these things. So it's really interesting to see how, you know, the joy of having destroyed the Empire at that point, or what they think, you know, is the majority of the Empire, that, you know, knocking the head off the snake. You know, how is it orchestrated? So we've got all these amazing sort of trills, bum, bum, like that, which is sort of, you know, joyous. That's replicated basically exactly the same material in the upper strings. The violas are following the horn line, which is what they would do, but with tremolo. As I say before, it's a sort of interesting bass thing going on with pizzicato, the cello sort of copying what the trombones are doing. I've mentioned the bass before. That's it. There are only sort of three things really going on. Bass, some slightly double line, and the trills, which are also doubled and mixed as well. And essentially, not much changes. The only real change here is that the wind now take part in everything else, whereas the trombones are now sort of static and with just held notes. That amazing sort of telescoped sort of melody, but almost so telescoped it's just pedal notes at that point, where we got all of that. But notice the separation thing. So here we've got the double bass, and then it goes like that, and then we've got the cellos, alternating. It's wrong in the live to picture version, miscopied, as so much of it is, like that. Not sure why it was miscopied. It's really clear in the orchestration score, so I have no idea why that's done that way. Never mind. So that is it. And what I will do, like I did before, is I'll go back to sort of orchestration after the whole film is finished. So we only really have sort of two more cues, and then it's the end credits at that point, which I've done before, but of course they'll be slightly changed because of the sort of the new themes of that film. So we'll be looking forward to that as well. But, you know, that's the sort of the heart of it, really, which is really interesting. So, yeah, I mean, that is it. Although it's sort of big, it's actually quite sort of self-explanatory in many ways. So I really hope you enjoy it. And yeah, we're just coming to the end. What was that? It was 90-something bars, I think 93 bars or so. So I think that's the sort of the last of the really, really big ones. But of course, the end credits is quite long as well. So You know, we've still got a little bit to go, but we've kind of we're on our way now. We're drawing to the end. So it's been a real pleasure to bring this to you, and I will see you very soon. Bye for now.